Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace. In this video I'm going to talk about, I looked up the AI overview on a few things that is the center of my life these days and has been for maybe a couple of years. One center part of it, but it's been about sexism. Okay, now I have an issue. I taught at college and university against racism, sexism, ageism, classism, all the negative isms, that means more, including more, and various things, because my master's degree is in sociology. And that's one of the topics I talked about within the class. Anyway, so I have a really good idea. I have a really good idea of what sexism is all about. And I was a career student over 20 years. Have a clue. And what I see far too often these days when I go to doctor's offices, and I mentioned this a couple of years ago, a doctor that was Adam's doctor, and Adam was with me. We had our appointments together, and I saw him. I started seeing him. The first time, just few little words I spoke, the next time I started speaking, and the doctor looked at me and he said, "You only get to answer in one word question, in one word. You can only speak in one word." Wow, I'm not getting that right. One word answers. Okay. Think about it. Adam, he didn't have any problem with. He was Adam's doctor. Adam said for like 15, 20 years, somewhere around there. Yeah, but I was only allowed to speak and answer in one-word sentences, one-word answers. Well, I think it was a time or two after that. Something happened that I had to see him again, and then whatever it was, he invited a couple of students in. Didn't ask, just invited them, and then asked me if it's okay, and I said, sure. Little did I know he was going to try something, telling me to forget everything I'd ever learned from any doctor ever before him, and to only listen to what he had to say about my rare health condition, or any of my health conditions. And these were diagnosed 25 years ago. And I'm to forget all that any doctor ever told me and just focus on him. And I flat out told him in front of those two and Adam. And Adam just sat there. Adam just sat there and didn't say a word. I guess he thought it was time. And I told him. I said, do not tell me to forget everything that anybody's ever told me. I've learned from these people. I learned from these. And I just went on. And I was very stern. I wasn't mean. That might sound a little mean, but I was very stern. And he just sat there, and his eyes got bigger and bigger. He didn't look over at Adam for Adam to stop me, because that wouldn't do. Adam's not the boss of me. Adam grew up in a country where, yeah, he would have been the boss of me there. He's not the boss of me here. And this is a problem I'm having, because that doctor, he grew up in a country, as he told me, right next to where Adam grew up. And yes, his country of origin, women are not equal to men. Okay, or is there any place that women are equal to men? There's a difference. We have to remember there are differences. Okay. The next doctor that I saw, he was from that same country. And these are not young men. They're not, I don't feel like that their age has so much to do with it as what they were raised to believe, their culture, when it comes to women. And I have an issue. I try not to generalize, try not to say that, I don't know if they were born here or not, if they were raised in this culture where women aren't treated the same as they are in the country of their parents, maybe. I cannot say this. But when I hear it, I know what it is. This actually a theory called not the third eye, but the second eye, and I think their name is, I had it somewhere here, I finally found it, but, not Berger, I can't remember, but it's a social theory by sociologists who were really big in this, and it was a long time ago, but they may still be alive. Anyway, I'll have to find that again. But that's what they learned, is that people who have been discriminated against, somebody shows prejudice, they discriminate against them, and that includes women of any ethnic group, any and all ethnic groups, and women, all. You can put those two together. Believe it. Okay? They know when they're being discriminated against. They know when somebody's being sexist. And it's not just on sexism, it's also on racism, classism, whatever it is a person is being discriminated against, for what reason, and it's something that consistently happens, it's called the second eye. So not the third eye, like I said earlier, the second eye. And I know this when I see this. Okay, believe me. After that first doctor that I mentioned did that, boy, did I start talking like you wouldn't believe. I've always been I've always been kind of a quiet person. And, one of my sisters, she told me one time that I'm the quiet nerd in the corner. I think she was jealous. I just had to say that. But, I've always been a quiet person because I've been always a person who's more like observing what's going on, and I get it in my head, what am I dealing with here? And what kind of person am I dealing with? Or people? And I'm just not that type that goes around. I'm not histrionic. I'm like the opposite of histrionic. I don't go around saying, look at me, everybody look at me, I don't raise my voice and don't scream out loud. I don't, try to get, the whole world to say, hey, I'm something special. Or, the opposite, so I can play the victim. No, that's not me. But after that doctor did that, I have noticed I am speaking more to doctors' offices, and I don't care. I don't care. I mean, I've never really cared, because I'm going to a doctor, there's a reason, there's a purpose, and I'm there to do it and be done, Okay, and I'm more of a person that I don't feel like wasting my time or having my time wasted, or theirs, anybody else's, get it done, go. Okay. But since then, oh no. I think subconsciously or unconsciously, I'm doing that. I am talking more, about more stuff, and yeah, it might annoy them. I don't care. I don't, because I'm going to tell you that that's not stopped. Like one doctor I walked into, one specialist. I've mentioned this before. Since then, and that was it earlier this year? This all started around 2 years ago, so that was earlier this year. And he apparently didn't like the fact that I had told his office manager, who was seeing what the people do with each person in whatever position they're in the company, with how their experience is. She was a new manager, their office manager, and she took their place in mine and told me why they had these machines there to do more tests. I said, well, I just had that test 2 weeks ago. And so there was nothing wrong with it. Okay. She said, well, the doctor might want his own test. I can't stand when I hear that. That means it's going to be money focused. Okay. Remember what my degrees are, or what that degree is in. It's got to be focused on money. How much money can they get out of me? I'm just some being holding an insurance card with dollar signs dangling off of it. No, I'm not. And I have seen it enough. And so I said, basically a little bit back and forth. I said, so she said, well, I'll go talk to him. He was in another room. And I said, okay, but if he says he needs another one for 2 weeks, just Ask him why. I want to know why. I'm serious. I want to know why. And I do. I want to know why. What does he think is going to leap forward in 2 weeks? Is something drastic going to happen? What would that be? Why would it be? Why would it be suddenly and then suddenly not? What could I have stopped it from happening? Okay? What could I have done to stop that from happening? I asked these questions. I want those answers. But I did not ask him because he walked in by himself. It was just me and him. And I know the score of if I were to say something, it would be my word against his. I'm well aware of that score. And you can hear it. I just heard it yesterday again on some TV show. You know, it's my word against his. What do you think is going to happen? I've lived my life knowing this. Anyway, so this guy walked in, and he is from one of those countries on that part of the, the earth, and who believe that women should be quiet. And, so I'm not saying no to people from other countries. I'm open. I judge each person separately. But I do not understand their culture. Okay, there is a culture. I don't take that out. I don't factor it out. I leave it in. If people say, well, I'm colorblind or I'm this, no, you're leaving out a bunch. You're leaving out their heritage. You're doing them wrong, too, by doing that. Even if it's bad, good or bad. Okay, not some stereotype, but what is actually part of their culture. That's the big importance. It's not going to be a stereotype, but the culture. Important. So anyway, he comes in and he says, I just don't believe that there was nothing wrong with you. And I'm thinking, okay, this test was done within the same system he's part of. Okay, so he's saying they did it wrong. Anyway, he said, I just don't believe it, and I'm going to run much more extensive tests. Yeah, I knew what extensive tests meant. It really meant much more expensive tests. Okay, so I was forewarned. I just retold this story yesterday. Yeah, and so that's basically how it went along. And then he told me that he was going to change my medicine. He told me he was going to run those tests and he was going to change my medicine, and he did not get to do either one of them because I fired him. I didn't sit there and say, you're fired. I just would refuse to go back. I spoke to my PCP and got a referral to someone else. Period. Unfortunately, the PCP referred me to someone in that office who was a intern for that. So no, that didn't happen. Then I wound up in the ER eventually, and they gave me a referral. So anyway, all of these things, when people like this last one that I mentioned, when he thought he was going to tell me, no, in America, in the United States, where he is practicing and I am living, and he is living, it is not that provider, doctor or nurse or whatever, centered. It is patient centered. The patient, it is a discussion between the two of them, and the patient has the final decision on what happens or not. And it's not going to be a temper tantrum thrown by the doctor to have it, or the provider to have it their way. Not supposed to be. That's what I was taught in graduate school. Okay, not undergraduate school, graduate school at university. And I've mentioned this, and oh man, to the next one. It was like, oh no, because he thought he was going to tell me what's going to happen, what should happen. No, his was, I asked, well, is it medically necessary? Do I need to have it done right now? That's a closed sentence. It means the response should be yes or no. And he said, I'd recommend it. Well, of course you would recommend it when you make a whole bunch of money off of it. Sometimes I wonder, these people think that we're stupid. Adam was with me. Adam called him. I think it was accidentally. Maybe Adam didn't do it accidentally, but he called him in his own lie. Okay, so it was funny. Adam and I talked about it later on, and yeah, it was pretty funny. But did the guy catch it? That's the funny thing. Also, funny not in ha-ha, but funny as in the guy actually thought he was pulling the wool over our eyes. Seriously. Adam is older than I am. I just turned 62. Okay, he's older than I. Between the two of us, we have plenty of years of experiences on this planet. And we've seen 2 different countries. We've seen all kinds of people try all kinds of things. So you're going to pull the wool over our eyes? When, I know, like I said, I don't think age should have anything to do with it. But he's young enough to be, he's Doogie Howser. He looks, seems, acts, all this like Doogie Howser. If you remember Doogie Howser. Okay. On that show, Doogie Howser. So, no, we were not born yesterday. And that's so, the smirk was actually on his face when he said that. And he kept saying that. He would not answer yes or no. Do I have to have it done right now? He wasn't going to answer. Okay, because he was wrong. He was lying. If he would be lying. Because no, I didn't need it right now. It was that he would make money if I had it right now. Okay, and as I mentioned before, that's him getting into my, not him, but somebody, a surgeon, in my heart. Just to see what's going on in there. No. I don't need you seeing what's going on in my heart. After all these extensive tests. Well, he wasn't the one that said the extensive tests. But I'm sure, it was in the medical records or somehow. Yeah, they're going to push for that. And, anyway. So, this is the problem I have. Now, I want to say this again about this with sexism. That I have issues with this because I am not one to judge people just because of where they were born and raised, their ethnic group, whatever. I'm not one to judge by that. Yet at the same time, I need to protect myself after my experiences over and over again of being oppressed and being told to try. They actually tried to silence me. Okay, one of them was a female. One was a female last year. The one that stuck her finger in my face. I've mentioned that story before. I'm not going to repeat it. My face and then Adam's face. And she thought she was going to be a dictator. And tell me, well, I will say this. She said, wagging her finger in my face. She did it twice, man. She said, I'm going to tell you what to do and you won't mind me. Put her finger in his face and said, and you will make sure that she does. She said it real awful, real horrible. She has a reputation, as I found out since then. Yeah, she has a reputation. No, which I would have known it then. Because this kind of oppression, this kind of sexism, this kind of, when it's especially by a doctor, a person who really kind of holds your life in their hands, and for them to tell you don't get to speak, you don't get to tell your story. There's a lot of things doctors need to listen to. They need to hear you say what happened to be able to connect the dots. And then there was a guy from this country at the ER one place, and finally I told him, I said, he told me that when I go in I had too many symptoms. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Of course I'm going to have symptoms. But there apparently only one symptom is allowed. And maybe 2, but it has to be a very important one. Every symptom is important. And anyway, as it turned out, he said, well, you really should have been going to this other hospital. I said, why didn't anybody tell me? Why hasn't anybody told me? And he's this little short dude, and I'm this tall, gentle giant of a woman. And at that point, we were both standing in front of one another. You know, this is the bad thing about the whole thing. Was one of the bad things about sexism is that difference in size. You know, I am not. I've always been female, always will be. But I come from a dad who was 6'7". You heard me right. 6'7", not 5'7". 6'7" was all he would admit to, and he was built like a linebacker. Okay, I get it honestly. I think I'm hearing noise outside, but anyway, what in the world? I better check this out. But anyway, you get the gist. The guy was intimidated by me, and he looked at me and he said he was never intimidated by me before then enough to be, tell me the truth. I should be going to a different hospital. There was several times I'd been there. I was even admitted for overnight one time there. But standing in front of me, I get the feeling, I know every once in a while, people, there's this tall woman. I was 61 at the time. And I'm gentle giant. I'm a very sweet, nice person. I just don't try to intimidate people. But I caught it as I was speaking to him. I said, why didn't anybody tell me that? Why hasn't anybody told me that? No, he just stared at me like he was scared. I wasn't holding my fist or doing anything like that. And he said, I don't know. I really don't know. Okay? Because he knows he should have been the one telling me. All of them should have be the ones telling me to go to another one of their hospitals for my situation. But they weren't doing that. What is it they call it? There's a term for it. It's kind of popular these days. But yeah, they weren't doing their jobs. Okay? And they were causing somebody else problems. So I have to protect myself. And that guy was not from a different... He was right here from the United States, okay? And now I'm saying all this because of all the AIs I looked up. Okay, I looked up at different countries, and what did they say about men and women having the same rights? Or the question, let's see, are women in the U.S. equals to men? In the U.S. And I looked up other countries, a couple of other ones, which I already knew the answer to. But I like how the AI overview breaks it down. So I'm going to go check out that noise outside, and maybe I'll have to do another video. We'll see. Okay, I went outside. The noise was that Adam had come home. We tend to take in rescued animals, dogs. Okay, why do I say animals? It's dogs, just dogs. And, we adopt them. We haven't done all that many. I don't want to make it sound like we have. I don't know how many we have done over the years, though. But more recent years, it's been 3, 4. Okay, 5. Let's see. Because I keep forgetting. We've done. One of them we just had for a day. She had run away from somebody's home. We kept her in our home. She was a black lab, I believe. We had 2 black labs at the time, I believe. Yeah, and we just fostered her for the day, I should say. And boy, the people were so happy when they found out we had her, and they came and got her. It was a dad and the son, it was right at Christmas time, so they brought us the son brought in a little kid. I didn't see it, but I didn't see this happening, but it was what do they call, Christmas time, the red ones, poinsettia. Yeah. And this latest one, yeah, we have the latest. But anyway, Adam had a animal he rescued today. He saw it yesterday, rescued it today, and did the appropriate thing. Not killed it. No. Brought it to the appropriate place to be, the vet, to do what they have to do. So, anyway, where was I on this? On the equality. What I had looked up, like I said, I'll probably have to make another video, because I did look up, the AI overview. I'm into that lately. I had decided when I saw those AI overviews, I'm going to do this. I don't know if anybody else does them, reads them, and comments on them, but I thought that would be good for me. Yeah. So, anyway, the AI overview on this, I looked up 3 countries altogether, including the United States of America. And all states, women aren't, all countries, women are not equals to men. It's just that it's different. In the United States it was for the other 2. Okay, and like I said, I would probably have to do a whole separate video, because this one's getting long, over the differences, and why and how it's different. But mainly in the United States, it's mainly the difference between money, what they earn, what we earn. It was 59. It would go from like 59 to 50, 59, 56, 59, 60, 61. It would go back and forth between those 3, or around and twisted. It was going to be one of those 3. Starting back somewhere in the 1950s, I think 1956. And now, what I read online, which I don't always trust what I read online, it's at 84 cents. Just a few, how many years ago? 8 years ago, or 9, say 10, they were saying 76. But it did not change from way back in the 50s until, say, I knew of from university, what university said. The university I was attending, what it said in the books, in the textbooks, in the whatevers. It was, and let's say, the last time, maybe just 20, 25 years. I don't know how many years ago. Actually, it wasn't all that long ago. And I'm like, that suddenly changed, right? Yep, because women are not paid the same. Same job, just aren't going to be paid the same. I've seen it. I have seen it in my lifetime, that I don't get paid the same as a man doing the same job. Seen it since I was 16 when I first started working. Yeah. Well, actually, the first time I worked was when I was 12. My dad had lost a leg to diabetes, and my mother was not working. She had 5 kids. She was a homemaker, and she did start working though, but during this time. But my dad got a hardship license for me, and I think just one of my sisters, maybe 2, who were old enough. You had to be 12 or older. And we got a hardship license, and we worked, me and this one that's just, she was a grade above me in school. And we made $1 an hour. There was no male working there. The next one was when I was 16. I did that with the school, the VOC or whatever. Lots of kids did that, where you work and you go through the VOC, whatever it was. Whatever that meant, vocational, I don't know. But, as a teenager, and that one did have males working, and they were making more money. And then when I met Adam, he and I worked at the same place, and he came back to work there. My sister, my oldest sister, Elvis, she had fired him. She was the manager, and she had fired him, but the boss let him come back, and the owner, and she was not happy. And Adam and I worked together, and he came back making more money than I. Okay, my sister had fired him. She's still trying to start trouble to this day. Over 45 years ago. Well, around 45 years ago. So, close to. Yeah. But anyway, that whole thing, it's been a story of my life. I remember a woman, I was working in a place, I was doing temporary because I was a career student, like over 20 years. And at the time I was doing seasonal, and I was doing through a temp agency. And we were all a bunch of temporaries. We're sitting at a desk, and there was this woman, she was I don't know, she was probably in her 60s or so, maybe 70s. And she told us that when she was young, when she was our age, whatever that was at the time, she told us that she was not allowed to have anything in her name because she was married here in the United States. Yeah, you heard me right. And that was, she said, back in it was the late 70s, mid to late 70s. And I guess before then too, of course. But what she was talking about was her marriage. When it happened, she was known as Mrs. MRS, Mrs. I remember we used to say, how do you pronounce that? Mrs. It was so funny. I don't hear it used anymore, so I've forgotten. I don't know if I can do it right, Mrs. Anyway, because you just called me Ms. That was a big deal, by the way. It was a big deal in my lifetime for it to shift from, because I was married, young, 18, Mrs. to Ms. Like, it was such a huge deal. Oh, women should not do such a thing. Really. But her thing was, she said she couldn't have her name on anything. It was only under his, that it was law. And she couldn't have her checkbook with her name. She was known as, it would go Mr. and Mrs., his first name, his last name, and that's it. In mine, she was, probably, I don't know how many years older than I at the time. But in my lifetime, when I first got married, they told me when I went to get my license renewed or whatever, I think it was just renewed, or they told me that I should have changed it to his last name, and then if I didn't, they would fine, the Social Security office would fine and or imprison me. Okay. I'm going to have a time, I have a feeling, when I go to renew mine next month. I had to make an appointment. I was sick and all that stuff, and I wasn't able to make the appointment. Lost my dog during all that. One of my dogs, all this. So much stuff going on. I was late to renew it. Had to make an appointment. And I'm going to have a time because of the way they did that there back then. My middle name isn't on it. It is actually my maiden name and my last name. So it's going to be something. It never fails. I mean, not with them. I've always had an easy time with them, but I just see it. It's about to happen. But anyway, my thing was, I went to a bank. Yeah, let me see. I went to a bank. I would say, I don't know how many years I had been married by then. Probably say 5. Let's just say that. I don't know. And I went to a bank, and I was not wealthy. I was just spirited, passionate. And I went to a bank, and I told them I wanted to put my name, my first name, middle name, and my last name hyphenated. And I was told that I could not put my last name, my maiden name. I could not put, I don't like the word maiden, but I could not put that on my checking account because it had to be under his last name. Oh man, I'm not a loud person. I'm not one of those histrionics that yells and screams and everything. But I said in a very strong, very just very clear voice, very stern. That's what I call myself, stern, and not very loud, but stern. I said, I want to know why, and I'm going to have this on my. If you want my bank, my bank, if you want my money to be in your bank, this will happen. And somehow, people around me were hearing it, and just customers, other people depositing. They heard it. I was not yelling. Overall, my voice doesn't get that high anyway, and very firm and stern, about it. And bank manager come out. He said, yes, of course she could have it this way. The way she wants it. It's her name. So, and that's how it was about things. That wasn't the only thing I did that to. And I think that a lot of times this has to happen. And like with these doctors, but I see it right now as I've lived through so much more life since then. It's my word against them. I know this. That doesn't stop me. But now I have Adam go with me more and more. It took time for me to get to that point where I would have Adam go with me. And, I go with him places, but I get him to go with me because I know. But it really bothers me when they spend more time talking to him about me, about my health situation. Seriously, it's still there. It's still there, but at the same time, I think, are they thinking that maybe I'm to the age now where, like my mother was at this age, she had early Alzheimer's, and are they thinking that about me? Because I'm a quiet person as it is, and why would I be having him with me? You see? Yeah, so I can see that. I can see that they might think that because I have him with me. Just period. Because he's with me. Anyway, I think I've done enough on this. I'll talk to you on another video. Bye.